So I just want you to say stop whenever that you like. So please say stop over here. Perfect. And just take a look at it. Actually, you know what? Go ahead and take the card and you can show it around and do whatever that you want with it. In the meantime, once you're done showing it around, I just want you to select 4 more cards. These 4 cards aren't going to be important, but they are going to confuse the hell out of me. So please just select 4 more cards, and that's going to be that. 4 more cards, and over here. Perfect. Again, these 4 cards aren't really relevant, but again, they are going to serve to be a hindrance to my abilities. So yeah, just feel free to shuffle these 5 cards, right? Doesn't really matter where your card ends up as long as you're happy with how they are shuffled, right? You can even give them a wash if you like, right? There we go. And now they have a thoroughly shuffled packet of 5 cards. Let's just take a look at what we have over here, right? We have quite a few interesting selection of cards, which is fine, right? So here's what's gonna happen. I'm actually just going to look at you, right? It's gonna be very uncomfortable, but I'm gonna look into your eyes. And I'm gonna sort of determine whether or not the card that I'm showing you is going to be your card, okay? And, you know, I'm gonna ask you some things, and I want you to lie to me. You can lie to me if you want, or you can tell me the truth. It really doesn't matter, okay? But as long as it throws me off my game, I'm completely fine with it, okay? So, is your card the 6 of clubs? And the 6 of clubs, is your card the 7 of hearts? And again, you can lie to me if you want. And yeah, if you want to lie to me, then that's completely fine. Is your card the ace of spades? Sorry, I'm checking your eyes. You have beautiful eyes. Sorry, that became weird. Is your card the 4 of clubs? Huh. You have a good poker face. Is your card the 2 of diamonds? Okay, you have an interesting look on your face. I think. Okay. I think I got it. Okay. So, if we actually have our little packet of 5 cards over here, right? Now watch. I think I know which one is your card over here. Watch. Over here, I've actually stolen your card. It's actually invisible over here, right? You actually can't see your card right now, but believe me, it's over here, right? Now watch. Sorry, I missed. Watch. There we go. And just like that, we're left with 4 cards. Don't believe me? It's fine. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 cards. Because your card is over here. In the center of the deck, the ace of spades. And that is just, the Biddle trick. Obviously, I wouldn't say that in practice, but you get my point. So, this will be one of the very few times that I will be teaching an effect. This is mainly because people always say that it's a powerful effect, but if you really take a step back and take a look at the overall effect, you're sort of left with a feeling of, why this particular action or why this particular presentation? And of course, this effect I'm talking about, you can probably already tell from the title, is the Biddle trick. So I'm going to separate this entire effect into basically 2 videos. For the first video, well, I'll be going over the usual things that I go over for my videos, which is just the history of the effect, as well as the most popular handling, and as well as the flaws of the effect. So that will be that'll be the crux of the video, my problems and my flaws with this particular effect. And you know, for the next video, that'll sort of be your homework. That'll sort of be your homework where you can sort of ponder on the flaws that I've given you for this effect, sort of just analyze, right, for the effect, and then, you know, you can take a week to think about it and just come back to the next video, and then see what I've presented for you in that next video. Okay? So that's how this structure of videos will go. But without further ado, let's get into the history of the Biddle trick. So, as we've come to know, the Biddle trick's history is relatively straightforward. But first, we need to talk about the sort of main component of the Biddle trick, which is the Biddle Move. And as you can probably guess, the move comes from a magician whose name is Elmer Biddle, because we've come to sort of associate name with move and sort of purpose, and then that's sort of the general move, right? So that is a move by Elmer Biddle. But the move wasn't actually first used for the Biddle trick. It was actually used for an effect called Transcendence. Well, actually, Transcendent is actually made up of two different effects, but neither of those were actually the Biddle trick that we know and love today. These effects were actually published in Genie, the Magic magazine, Genie Volume 11, number 8, back in April 1947. So that's where Transcendent was actually first published. But by then, the move, the main component of the move, which was the Biddle trick, Biddle Moves, my bad. So by then, the Biddle Move wasn't actually known as the Biddle Move. It was actually unnamed. It wasn't until Hugard's Magic Monthly back in 1948, so that was in Volume 6, number 1, that name, that move was actually nicknamed the Biddle Card Vanish by Frederick Browie. So eventually, as time went on, you can sort of tell how people actually just sort of shorten it to the Biddle Move. Interestingly enough, there's actually another magician who lays claim to the Biddle Move, and that is Tony Carderow. So in Ed Marlowe's The Cardition back in 1953, he actually pointed out that Tony Carderow has actually shown him the Biddle Move before Elmer Biddle has actually published the move in Transcendent in the Genie Magic magazine. So, quote, "In one instance, I referred to a move as the Carderow-Biddle Move. The reason for this is that Tony Carderow showed us the basic move at a Pittsburgh convention years before it appeared under Elmer Biddle's name in the Genie magazine. Since this has never quite been settled to our satisfaction as to which of the two men the basic move belonged, we have always called it the Carderow-Biddle Move." Unquote. So we'll never really know who this move actually truly comes from, but regardless, it'll mostly / always be known as the Biddle Move to most magicians nowadays. Though, from what I understand, Tony Carderow's handling of the Biddle Move was actually slightly different from Elmer Biddle's move. And as a matter of fact, it actually inspired Bob Vizer's Vizer concept, which I'm not going to show, but it's a sort of interesting move. But that's about it for the Biddle Move. Let's go back to the Biddle trick. So the modern day Biddle trick is actually a product of two different effects. The first one is Wow by Richard Bruce Ferguson, which was published in Hugard's Magic Monthly, Volume 9, number 4, back in September 1951. The second effect was actually from the creator of the Biddle Move himself, Elmer Biddle. So that was an effect called Biddle Through. That was published in The Gen, Volume 16, number 3, in July 1960. So the modern day Biddle trick actually took ideas from both of these effects, sort of just, since they both sort of shared the same structure and moves, and basically just optimized it by just combining ideas from both of them. So the version of the Biddle trick that I'll be teaching you today comes from Card College Volume 3, back in 1998, by Roberto Giobbi. So that's an effect called the Invisible Card, and it's the version of the effect that most people already know. And yeah, that's basically the basic history behind the Biddle trick. Obviously, there's a lot more sort of nuances in between of publications, all that, but this is just the general history behind the Biddle trick. So before we get started with the effect, there's two moves that you will need to know: the Riffle Force and the Biddle Move. I'll go over each of these moves separately in this video first, then we'll go over into the routine as a whole. But of course, they'll just be described relatively briefly and not as in-depth as my other videos. So those are the two moves that you will need to know, but of course, you'll be able to find them right now. So let's start off with the Riffle Force. Your force card, let's just say, which is the Ace of Spades, starts off in the center of the deck or somewhere near the center of the deck. So for the sake of it, we'll start off with the Ace of Spades on top of the deck. And just as an easy setup for the force, you're just going to execute a swing cut which I taught on the channel. You're going to execute a swing cut, and as you go to square up this deck, you're just going to slightly stick your pinky in there and get a pinky break, just like so. So now from the front, it will look flush, but from the back, you have a separation over here. All right? Now what you're going to do is that you're just going to have someone say stop as you riffle through the upper left corner of the deck with your left thumb. So you're just going to curl in your left index finger underneath the deck, apply a bit of upwards pressure, and your left thumb is just going to press downwards, and this allows you to actually just riffle through the deck, just like so, okay? So one pushes up, one pushes down, and this allows you to riffle through. Okay? So now you're just going to have someone say stop whenever you want, and whenever they want, sorry. And more often than not, they actually land near the center of the deck, which is perfect, because there's actually a discrepancy with this force, okay? So let's just say as you're actually just riffling through the deck, they say stop, right? Stop over here, right? Perfect, okay? So you're just gonna leave this gap open. So you're like, okay, so your selection is just going to be right where you said stop at, okay? So your right hand is going to reach over and it's going to grab the top packet of the deck in a right hand biddle grip, okay? But under the guise of actually just grabbing this top packet, your left thumb is actually just going to let go of this portion over here. It's just going to let go, and now it is completely square from the front. But that is hidden by your right middle ring and pinky finger, okay? So as it goes here, this releases, and now it's hidden, okay? Here, release, okay? But at the same time, your right thumb is actually going from the back and contacting where the pinky break is at. So it's actually just going to be here, right? So now your right hand is essentially just grabbing the top packet above of the pinky break, okay? And this is where the bluff actually comes into play, because when you release this, you're just gonna pick up and you're just gonna lift off from the pinky break. And that's the force, because now when you actually go to thumb off this card, it's gonna be your force card, right? So once more, riffle, right? It's at a random location. Right hand comes over, covers the front edge of the deck, release, your thumb grabs from the back, lift off, and then that's your force card, okay? So really doesn't matter where they stop at, because you're just going to lift off regardless at where your pinky break is at, okay? So that is just the general handling behind the Riffle Force. Of course, everything should be done with no hesitation, because of course if you're like here, right, that's really awkward. But if you go say stop anywhere, right here, perfect, and that's your card, right? That looks a lot better. So everything has to be done with no hesitation and in one smooth motion, because the core of the force is, again, you're essentially not picking up from where they stopped at, okay? So some people, to hide the discrepancy of the left thumb releasing the cards, actually like to wipe the front edge of the deck with the right hand fingers before picking up the upper packet. So they actually like to go, say stop wherever, here. All right, perfect. Right fingers go here, and they actually wipe here, okay? So they go here, wipe, pick up. So that's something that some people actually do. And of course, they just like to pick it up from there, and that's the force. And that's just a basic handling of the Riffle Force, okay? So next, let's go over the Biddle move. So you'll need more than one card for this move to work properly. Usually it's done with 5 cards, but as long as it's a packet of cards, it doesn't really matter. So for the sake of the explanation, let's just assume that you have a packet of 5, right? And we'll also assume that the ace of spades, which is going to be your selection or your force card, is going to be in the center of the packet right here in the 3rd position, okay? But realistically, as long as your selection isn't the bottom card, this move will work just fine, okay? So any of these 5 cards, it could be 4th, it could be 3rd, it can be 2nd, it can even be the 1st one. As long as it's not the bottom card, then it works fine, okay? So you have your ace of spades smack dab in the center of the deck, just like so, in the center of the packet, just like so, and the rest of your cards are going to be face up, okay? Next, you're going to take your packet and you're just going to lay them face down on top of the deck. Now, you're going to pick up about half of the deck, and then you're going to pick it up in a right hand bill grip, just like so, okay? You can actually do this move with the full deck, just like so, but for the sake of how the effect actually works, we'll make it easier and we'll just use about half the deck, okay? But of course, again, once more, it can be done with the entire deck. Next, you'll have your left thumb actually reach over this gap, and it'll actually start to peel off the cards one by one. And you'll actually have to note each of the cards, right? So is it the 3 of spades, right? As you do so, you're just going to peel off the 3 of spades, right? Notice how this card is actually quite loose in my hand, right? The cards that are actually peeled off are actually a bit closer to the fingertips because that will actually make the move easier, okay? So as you peel one card, and then as you go over to peel the second card, notice how the peeled card actually sort of coalesces with the bottom of this packet over here, right? It goes over here and it sort of coalesces and just kisses the bottom of this packet over here as it goes to peel off the second card, right? That's important because that's how the move works later on. And the second thing is, this creates consistency in motion. You want everything to look and feel the same, okay? So now, as you peel off the second card, you're just gonna separate both hands once more, okay? And now we're arriving at our selection. So as you go to peel off this third card, which is the selection, you'll actually want to keep a pinky break below of the selection. So as you go to peel off this card, you're just gonna stick your pinky in there, and this card will land in on top of the pad of your pinky over here, okay? So now there's a separation. So we have our 2 miscellaneous cards, pinky break, and then the selection over here, okay? Just like so. And now, this is where the move actually happens. As you go to peel the third card, which is just another, as you go to peel off the fourth card, that's where the move actually happens. So as you go to peel off the fourth card, remember, this packet is supposed to coalesce with the bottom of this packet over here. So as it goes to coalesce with this bottom packet, you'll notice that now I have the perfect opportunity for my right thumb and my right fingers to actually grab on to the selection over here, which is separated by a pinky break. So as I go over here to peel off the fourth card, I'm actually just going to grab on to the card that's above of the pinky break, which is the selection, right? So the pinky break makes everything easier because now I can just grab onto it with no issue. And now I'm just going to peel off this fourth card over here, right? And because this fourth card is going to land directly on top of these 2 cards, it's actually going to hide the fact that their selection is now missing, right? Because if I just did the bill move right here, and I just peeled off, like, oh wow, their selection disappeared, and you don't really want that. So you want this card over here to land completely flush against the packet, and now they won't be able to tell that their selection has been stolen, okay? And that's the bill move. It's essentially a steal right, from this packet because you are stealing it onto the bottom of the packet and then you're peeling off this 4th card over here, right? So now we only have 3 cards over here. And now you can go on and peel off the last card, just like so, okay? So now you're left with 4 cards, 4 face-up cards in your left hand, and you're left with the selection on the bottom of this packet over here. And that's the Biddle Move. You're left with 4 cards in your left hand, while one of the cards, which is their selection, is tucked underneath of the packet facing the opposite orientation, okay? And depending on the break and depending on when you execute the steal, this means they can actually steal more than 1 card, right? Think about it. If I actually did the Biddle Move with, let's just say, with another ace, right? If I have a packet of 6 cards, let's just say, which is over here, and yeah, so if I have a packet of 6 cards, here, 4 of spades, 2 of clubs, here, if I actually keep a break below of the ace of diamonds, and I peel off, once more, the ace of spades, but I don't execute the steal just yet, and now, when it comes to the 7 of hearts, and then I execute the Biddle Move, right, now I've actually stolen 2 cards, right? So depending on where you're keeping the break and depending on how many cards you count on top of the break, that's how many cards that you're going to steal for the Biddle Move, right? So you can actually steal more than 1 card in the for the Biddle Move. And like I said before, you can actually do this move with a full deck, right? You actually do this move with a full deck and with any card in any position in the packet, as long as it's not the bottom card. Because if I actually did the Biddle Move with the bottom card, look at what happens, right? 3 of spades, 7 of hearts, 2 of clubs, 4 of spades, ace of spades, and I can't really just peel off another card because that's a face down card, right? So any other position for this card will work, except the bottom card because it's the last card, and wouldn't make much sense for me to just steal this card because I don't have the justification of peeling this card, okay? So any position for this, for the selection is fine, as long as it's not the bottom card, okay? And again, it can be done with the full deck. So once more, 2 of clubs, ace of spades, break, peel the 7 of hearts. That's when I replace the ace of spades on the bottom deck. 3 of, whoops, sorry, that was 2. 3 of spades and then 4 of spades, right? And of course, it's now on the bottom of the deck, just like so, okay? And that is the Biddle Move. So essentially, that is just a steal from a packet of cards as you're peeling the cards one by one, okay? And what this essentially accomplishes is, if I have a packet of 4 cards over here, of 5 cards over here, right? And I steal the selection, so 4 of clubs, king of clubs, ace of spades, break, replace, steal, 7 of spades, 6 of clubs. Now, what this allows me to do is when I actually put the packet back on top of the rest of the deck, this actually allows me to have a reverse card in the center of the deck, which is their selection. So now it's like their selection has suddenly teleported from this packet of cards into the center of the deck, right? So that's what this move actually allows you to do, okay? Now, there are 2 tips for this move for it to actually look good, and that is, when you're actually executing this move, you want the pacing of the peels to be consistent, right? So obviously you don't want this to be 6 of clubs, 7 of spades, ace of spades, pause as I steal this card, king of clubs, and then 4 of clubs, right? I want everything to be at a consistent rhythm, even if I have to slow down the overall peeling process, right? I want 4 of clubs, king of clubs, ace of spades, 7 of spades, 6 of clubs, right? Obviously I flashed there, but it's just so then I could angle it properly. But that's essentially what you want. You want a consistent rhythm as you peel these cards, right? You don't want this, right? You don't want, or you want that, but you don't want like a freeze in between these two, right? So you don't want this, right? No, that's really weird. So you want, again, a consistent peeling motion, right? The other thing is, if you're actually having trouble with coalescing these cards, notice that this packet actually goes to hit the base of my thumb every single time I go to peel, right? This actually allows me to actually have a gauge of where this card should go, because now the long edge of this packet, and by extension of the cards, is hitting the pad of my the base of my thumb. Now this means that I can actually align this card with the card that's already in my hand, and as a result, right, I can hide everything a lot better. And it's actually fine if it's actually offset by just a touch, because then it shows the white border, right? As long as it doesn't reveal the indices of the card, then it's going to be completely fine, because it's just a white border, right? And again, this little white border display over here just shows them that there's more than one card in your hand right now, which is fine, right? So as long as you don't flash the identity of the card, then it's completely fine, okay? So I can have this and it's fine, okay? So that is fine, okay? So just using the base of your thumb as a way to square up everything is going to be fine. And once the card is in your hand and you realize that it's slightly offset, that's fine. You can use your left fingers to just square everything up. Okay, and those are just the 2 tips for the Biddle Move, is that you just have a consistent rhythm and using the base of your hand, of your thumb, of your palm to just align everything. Okay, and that is the Biddle Move. Now that we have all of the basic components of the build trick down, let's go over how this effect works. You will have to have the spectator shuffle the deck, right? Just have them shuffle it randomly. And when you actually take back the deck, you're actually just going to glimpse the top card. If you don't have any top card glimpses, then that's fine. What you can do is that you can actually just spread through the deck, right? You can spread through the deck and just under the guise of complimenting the spectator, being like, oh, this is a very well shuffled deck, right? Like, oh, you did a good job shuffling the deck. Under the guise of just saying that, you can just pick the top card, right? It's as simple as that. So 9 clubs. But just to make this easier, we'll just assume that the card on top is going to be the Ace of Spades, right? So we're just going to glimpse the top card, which in this instance is going to be the Ace of Spades. You're going to collect the cards, and now you're going to turn the back face down. Next, you're going to prepare for the Riffle Force. So you're just going to give the deck a swing cut, right? Keep a break above of the top packet, of the former top packet, like so. So you're keeping a break above of the force card, right? Now, you're just gonna Riffle Force, so say stop whenever you want. They can say stop wherever they want. Execute the Riffle Force, pick up at the pinky break, right? And then you're just gonna give them the force card, right? You're just gonna give them the force card and they're just gonna show it around and do whatever that they need to do. And the purpose of actually forcing this card is so then you know exactly what card that the spectator has selected, right? Which is the Ace of Spades, okay? So now that I know their selection, this makes the entire effect a lot easier, okay? So they're showing the effect, they're showing the card around, and as they're showing this card around, now I have two packets. Obviously, I have the card, I have the bottom packet in my left hand, I have the top packet in the right hand build grip. The top packet, I'm just gonna put it down in front of me. I'm never gonna touch them again, right? This packet is just gonna stay on the table, and that's that, right? We're not really gonna care about them, because once they're done showing this selection around, what we're gonna do is that you're actually just gonna spread the cards in your hand in the hand spread, and we're just gonna ask them to take out 4 more cards, right? These cards aren't going to be relevant, and the spectator should only need to remember their selection, right? So we're just gonna ask them to take out 4 cards. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're just gonna say something along the lines of, oh, I'm here to like sort of guess which one is your selection, right? So if they have 4 cards, right, then they can just toss their selection somewhere in there, which we know is the ace of spades. So then they can then toss their selection in there, and you can ask them to just shuffle this packet of 5 cards over here, all while you have this lower packet in a left hand dealer's grip, okay? So you can shuffle this amount of 5 cards in their hands, right? And now you're just gonna retrieve this packet over here. And what you're gonna do is that you're just going to turn these five cards face up on top of this packet over here, right? And obviously you can briefly spread them to sort of just eye the fact to see if the bottom card is actually their card. If it is, you can actually just give the cards a little mix yourself, right? You can give the cards a little mix yourself, just to make sure that you are in the correct position to execute the bill move, right? Because again, you don't want their selection to be on the bottom of the deck, right? So just give it a little shuffle yourself, right? So now that you've made sure that their selection isn't on the bottom of the deck, right? You're just gonna square everything up. Your right hand then going to pick up everything in their right hand bill grip, and that's when you actually start to execute the bill move, right? So now you're just gonna say something along the lines of, I'm just gonna determine which one of these is gonna be your card. Don't say anything. I'm just gonna look at your facial expressions, right? And I'll just go through the cards one by one, okay? So ace of clubs, okay, nothing. King of hearts, okay, nothing. And then because you know this card is their selection, you're then going to execute the bill move over here. So you're just going to keep a pinky break as you peel this card, right? Pinky break below of their selection. And as you go to peel another indifferent card, so 2 of spades, peel, and then you execute the steal, right? Steal, peel, okay? Okay, nothing, right? 6 of clubs, okay, nothing. And now, as you finish displaying and peeling off all of the 5 cards, and that you have the selection on the bottom of this packet over here, you're then just gonna place this packet on top of the table packet, okay? So what this does is that this displaces the selection into the center of the deck, and it leaves you with 4 cards in your left hand, okay? So now what you're going to do is that you're just going to take this packet of 4 cards and you're just going to turn it face down. And now you're going to execute a false count, which is just the bill steal, but you're just going to replace the first card on the bottom of the packet. So over here, as I turn the packet face down, I'm just going to grip everything in a right hand bill grip, just like so, right? I'm just going to peel off the first card, so 1. And as I go to peel off the second card, I'm actually just going to replace this card onto the bottom of this packet over here, right? So I'm going to go 1 here. As I go to peel off second card, replace this card over here. 2, right? So now I have 1 card in my left hand, right? So I'll always have less than 1 card in my actual hand as I go to count, simply because I replaced that 1 card. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this actually makes it so that I can count 4 cards as 5 cards, mainly just because I replaced this first card, right? So in motion, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Obviously it looks less good because I have a one-way back design, but if you have a two-way back design, it'll look very good. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So then that's a miscount of 5 cards. Okay. So now that you've convinced them that you still have 5 cards in your hand, what you're gonna do is that you're just gonna mime grabbing the card from the packet. So you're just gonna go, right? I'm gonna take your card and I'm just gonna toss it back into the deck, right? So, and then pop. And now you can show that the packet in your hand that you've counted as 5 cards only has 4 cards now. So you can go 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? There's no 5 cards, which shows that their selection has vanished from this packet. And now you can spread the deck and show that their selection has teleported from this packet of 4 cards into the deck, just like so. Okay, and that is the build trick. That is essentially just the build trick, which is just a not transposition, which is just a, I guess, teleportation effect. That's not the correct term. No, it's a teleportation effect, right? Because it teleports from the center of this packet into the center of the deck. Okay, and that is the build trick. So I'll just give you the general presentation guide and themes for this effect. I'm not going to give you a complete pattern because that's for you to discover and sort of plan, or you can just buy Card College and use that pattern. But the presentation that Roberto Giobbi actually uses in that book is based on George Kaplan's presentation of the effect. Right, so I'll just give you a brief rundown for the effect. So the general gist of the effect is that as you show these 5 cards, right? As you show these 5 cards, the theme is that you sort of want to determine the spectator's card based on their facial expressions. Jeez. So every time you show them one of these 5 cards, you're gonna ask them, "Is this your card?" But don't tell me anything. All right? So, is this your card? And of course, you can say yes or you can say no. You can lie to me if you want, right? But it doesn't matter because I'm just reading off based on your facial expressions. All right. So it's gonna be sort of a lie detector type of plot. So is your card the King of Hearts? No. Yes. All right. That's fine. Is your card the 2 of Spades? Yes. No. That's fine. Is your card the Ace of Spades? Right. Continue. But as you peel off this card, right, which is their selection, keep a pinky break. That's fine. Is your selection the 6 of Clubs? That's when you execute the Biddle Move, right? So now their selection is on the bottom of this packet, right? And is your card the Ace of Clubs? All right, that's fine, right? So now again, I've successfully replaced the card into the center of the deck. Right, so that's the general presentation of this effect. It's just sort of a lie detector type of plot where you're going, okay, are you lying to me? How's your facial expressions? How is that, right? So you're basically the human lie detector, and you're basically analyzing them. Okay. Now, when you actually mime to take the card out of this 5 card packet, what you're going to do is that Roberto Giobbi actually recommends that you actually just move away from the deck. You're actually going to move away from deck and then just do whatever they need to then mime as if you're taking out the card invisibly, right? So you'll notice that when I do this, I do a lot of like sounds. I do, right? But obviously you can do something more. You can actually just give the cards a snap and then just move away and then toss, right? But obviously because I'm explaining everything, I can't really move away, but you can take a step back or you can take several steps back. It doesn't really matter, depending on your personality, really. I imagine if you're someone who likes to perform a la David Williamson, you would run across the room and then you would actually try and aim and then, oh crap, I missed. Or something along those lines, right? So as you're actually just trying to mime taking the card out and then just tossing into the deck, you can make that into a whole show, right? You can really try and sell that, or you can just not, right? Or you can do something as simple as, right? Something as simple as that, or again, you can run across the room, aim, oh, I missed. Let me try that again. Run back, pick up the invisible card, run back, toss it back in, right? It really depends on how your character is, again, and how you want to handle the vanish of the card from this 4-card packet and the reappearance into the deck, right? So again, this is just to sell the entire act, right? And that's the general presentation and motions of the effect. So aside from Roberto Giobbi's presentation, some people actually have a slightly different way of structuring the effect. I'll just briefly go over it. So just because it's mainly the same with just a few minor differences. So it's going to start the exact same way. You're going to force the top card that you've peeked already, right? So again, I'll be using the Ace of Spades for explanation purposes. So you have your Ace of Spades on top of the deck, swing cut, right? And now you're just going to force the Ace of Spades, right? Here, Ace of Spades, they're going to show it around. But now, unlike the Roberto Giobbi structure where you place the top packet down, you're actually just going to square up the deck, right? Because it doesn't really matter. They have their card and you know their card, right? And now as they go to bring the card back, you're just gonna have them lose it in the center of the deck, right? You're just gonna have them lose them in the center of the deck, and then you can actually hand the deck for the spectators to shuffle, right? Because it doesn't matter. You know their card. You know where their card is, right? So it really doesn't matter, all right? And now you're gonna collect the cards back and you're just gonna turn everything face up. So now you're gonna go over here. You're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna try and guess which one of these is your card. So you're gonna go over and you're just gonna spot where their selection is, which is near the top. But yeah, you're just gonna spot where their selection is, and you're just gonna take out a few random cards. You're gonna take out 4 random cards. So I think it might be your card. I'm not too sure. Maybe this one. Maybe this one. And again, you want to take out their selection, obviously, right, for the effect to work. So maybe this one, maybe this one, and maybe this one, right? It really doesn't matter what the 4 other cards are, as long as you take out their selection, and as long as you don't take out their selection last. Okay. Now you're just gonna take out all of the 5 cards, turn the deck back face up, and then you're gonna place the 5 cards on top of the deck face up. Okay. Next, you're going to place the deck on the table and cut about half the cards, and then you can execute the Biddle move as per usual. So 7 of hearts, 8 of spades, Ace of Spades, keep a break, right? Steal the card as you go to count off the 8 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, replace the deck over here, and then it's going to be essentially the same thing, right? Bill false count, so that's 5 cards, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Next, you're gonna mime taking out the card and tossing it back into the deck. And then you're gonna display that there are 4 cards in your hand and that their selection has reappeared in the center of the deck, okay? So really the only difference with how, I want to say this sort of structure works, is just that their card is lost in the center of the deck once more, right? Their card is lost in the center of the deck once more, and now you're picking it out from a face-up deck. That's really the only difference, right? Versus Roberto Giobbi's presentation, which was they're selecting 4 more cards, right? They're selecting 4 more cards, and this one, you're the one who's selecting 4 more cards under the guise of guessing which one is their card, okay? So that's really the only difference between these 2 different structures, okay? So yeah, that is the Biddle trick as people have done it. But I do actually have a couple of problems with how this effect in general is presented and structured. One, mainly because it's not nearly as impressive as we think it is. We're trying to find their card from a group of 5, and we have to guess which one is theirs. But really, it's really not that impressive, especially if the audience has already seen you perform. Because let's think about it, right? If we're doing the ambitious card, right? So we have them select a card and we put the card in the center of the deck, and you're going like, oh yeah, and your card always rises to the top or whatever, right? This is essentially finding the card amongst a deck of 52. And now, for the build trick, you have to find a card from a group of 5. If you really think about it, that's a huge downgrade. That's a ridiculous downgrade because you're going from finding their card in a deck of 52 to finding their card in a 5-card packet. Like, that is actually a huge step down because now you're like, you're reducing, well, I guess in their mind, it's sort of like reducing like the risk because you have one card over here and you're finding it amongst all of these other ones. Whereas if you're doing it from a build trick, I'm just trying to find their card from like this. I can guess which one is their card just from a 20% chance, right? It's not nearly as impressive, right? So if you really think about it, it's not that impressive if you try and guess their card from a packet of 5. So there's that. The second thing is that there's actually an inconsistency in terms of your character and your previous capabilities. Again, right? Why are you guessing? Because you've actually never had to guess before. Usually you, as the magician, you can find their card with just a snap of the fingers or with a magic word. So why do you suddenly have to guess which one of these cards is their card, right? Because usually you have someone select a card, right, or whatever, and then when you execute whatever, right, when you execute a snap of the fingers, it's back on top of the deck, right? You never had to guess before. Why are you suddenly guessing which one of these is their card? There's a sudden disconnect and inconsistency in what you can do as a magician and as a performer, right? Because suddenly I lose all my capabilities, right? I can't snap my fingers and then guess which one of these is their card, right? I have to big brain. I have to look at their facial expressions to guess, right? Again, guess is a big word, to guess which one of these cards is their selection from a group of 5, right? So again, there's a big disconnect between what you present yourself as and what you previously established yourself as, right? Because you're usually so sure of yourself, right? You can make things happen with a simple gesture, but now you suddenly have to guess. It, again, feels really out of place, and it sort of degrades your character as a magician because, again, suddenly there's an inconsistency in your capabilities, all right? And the third flaw is more of a sort of structure thing rather than a presentation thing. So the third thing is just separating the deck, right? Obviously, we need to cut the deck in half for the Biddle Move to work. But there's never really a proper justification for why you have to leave one half on the table and why you suddenly have half a deck in your hands, right? Sean Devine actually has a presentation where as he looks through to find their selection, he actually eliminates half the deck, right? So he goes, I think your selection isn't in this half. I don't think your selection is in this half. And that way, he tables half the deck under the guise of eliminating half of the cards as being possible candidates for the selection, right? So that's how he ends up with half the deck on the table, right? He just eliminates half of the deck, right? Which I think is a much better justification than usual. But then you also have to ask, why are the 5 cards placed on top of one half of the deck, right? Why are they on top of this deck, of half a deck over here, right? And I don't mean this only applies to Sean's presentation, but just the effect in general. If you're eliminating cards, why is there still a packet in your hand? Realistically, they should be tossed aside as well, because now you only have to guess which one is their selection from these 5 cards. This packet should not be relevant, so why are they still in your hand, right? Realistically, if you eliminated these cards, they should be on the table and you're left with only these 5 cards, right? So this is one of those instances where we're letting the method of the effect, which is the Biddle Move, right? We're letting the Biddle Move actually dictate how the effect should look, right? Whereas usually it should be how the effect should look and feel first, and then that should dictate the method. and not the other way around, right? Because realistically, again, there's no reason why we have to cut the deck, right? Why there's still half the deck in our hand, right? Unless we find a proper justification for it. But as with most presentations for the effect, there's really no reason why they're in here, right? If we're eliminating candidates for their selection, I don't see why this should be in our hands, right? So that is, those are just the main flaws that I have with the effect. Notice how I said main, because I think those are the 3 main flaws that I think hold the effect back, right? There are some other minor flaws that I have with the effect, but those 3 are the bulk of the issues that I have with the effect. And so that was the build trick. That was a long video, I'm really sorry about that, but notice a couple of things about this video. 1, there's no further reading section for the video. 2, I didn't give out my solutions for the build trick. And 3, the title of the video says part 1. That is because all of those will be in part 2. I'll be giving my thoughts and solution on the build trick next video. The only caveat is that, and this sort of a self-imposed condition, is that I actually didn't change the method all that much. I obviously have more methods for the build trick, but the challenge is creating something that doesn't use any sort of extra slights or and keeps the core mechanics of the basic build trick, right? So that's the main thing about the build trick sort of solution that I'm going to be presenting next video. And so in the meantime, while you're waiting for the next video to drop, I want you guys to actually do a bit of homework. I want you to take your time and think about the flaws that I presented for you for the Biddle trick, right? Think about what you would actually change about the effect to solve those flaws, right? Just think about it. Maybe write down possible solutions. Maybe tinker with maybe different moves, different sort of presentations, different structures, right? That's going to be your homework. And you have a week to do it. That's not a lot of time, now that I think about it, for planning and restructuring an effect, but nothing like a bit of stress to help you with thinking about stuff, right? So you have a week to think about it. And then once the next video is up, I want you to put your thoughts in the comments down I want you to put the okay, give me a sec. I want you to put your thoughts in the comments in the second part, and then we can sort of compare notes, right? Compare what you came up with versus what I came up with for the presentation of the build trick to sort of tackle those flaws, right? That's gonna be your homework. And so yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with, if you guys are actually gonna come up with anything, but I believe. And so yeah, I hope that this video actually sort of got you to reflect on just a lot of effects in general and how they're actually structured. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you guys next week for part 2 of the Biddle trick. And see you guys next time.